what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Footcandle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Footcandle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Footcandle Films. I am Alan.
I'm Chris Fry.
How y'all doing?
I hope they're doing well. I'm doing well. I'm ready to review some movies.
We got some good reviews to do today.
I think so.
Actually, this should be kind of fun. This is Footcandle Films. This is our film review show here on The Mesh, themesh.tv. Go back, spend the weekend, queue up all the old episodes, get caught up, make sure you know what our thoughts were on all the other films we've reviewed throughout the last couple of years. But today, we're focusing on some new films that are out there in theaters. We got two films to talk about in particular, two film reviews to give you today. First off, we'll be talking about the film Hitchcock, followed by a review of Django Unchained. Then we're going to jump into some movie news and share a couple of movie news tidbits with you and chew on those a little bit. Then we're both going to close out with a recommendation, a film that you can maybe find online or find through some sort of other streaming service that would be very easy to watch that we think you ought to check out, that you might enjoy. So that's our Footcandle Films episode. That's what we're going to do today. And just as a reminder, you can always learn more about The Mesh at themesh.tv. Check out all the other shows on the network, as well as all the episodes of Footcandle Films that we've had as well. So with that, Chris, we're ready to jump into our first review?
Definitely.
All right. Our first review is the biopic Alfred Hitchcock, titled, aptly enough, Hitchcock.
All of us harbor dark recesses of violence and horror. I'm just a man hiding in the corner with a camera, watching.
Mr. Hitchcock, you're the most famous director in the history of the medium, but you're 60 years old. Shouldn't you just quit while you're ahead?
This is murder. I'm getting blisters just watching you.
He's going out of his mind looking for his next project.
I need something fresh, something different.
Our listeners remember, because of course they do listen to every show.
Every episode. Multiple times normally. Yes.
That we recently talked about Psycho, kind of a flashback episode for our Footcandle Spotlight. And in that, you and I both liked the movie Psycho, and you talked about how you are a Hitchcock fan.
Yes.
So, with this movie, obviously, it was about Hitchcock, but also about specifically him making Psycho.
It was almost just perfect synergy there, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I would say so. So, Alan, you being the fan, you being a fan of Psycho and of Hitchcock, are you a fan of Hitchcock, the movie?
Yes.
There's a little hesitation there.
It was a little hesitation, but not a whole lot. No, I am a fan of this film.
Okay.
I enjoyed it, but I do realize going into this that I'm a little more biased automatically towards it.
Okay.
I'm a sucker for films that talk about the making of films.
Got you.
I love behind the scenes movies about movies.
Okay.
I love Alfred Hitchcock.
Got you.
I love Psycho. So automatically, this could have been the worst movie ever made from a theatrical standpoint.
Okay.
And I'm still going to enjoy it.
Gotcha.
Now, that being said, I do think it was a good movie, not without its flaws, not without some things I wish they had handled differently.
Gotcha.
But overall, I thought for someone to wanting to learn a little bit more about the character of Alfred Hitchcock, to learn a little bit more of the behind the scenes during the making of this film, I learned a few things I did not know about the making of this film. Overall, I give it a thumbs up. I thought it was a good film. I enjoyed it. I would recommend it to anybody who has a fascination with filmmaking or enjoys the movie lore or some of the legends of Alfred Hitchcock personality. I think it's worthwhile to check out. I thought the performances were pretty solid.
Okay.
This is a film where Alfred Hitchcock's a very well-known personality.
Yes.
So it's not a matter of Alma Hitchcock. Anybody could have kind of played her any way they wanted to, and not many people would have been much the wiser. But Alfred Hitchcock, you've got to nail it.
Yes.
You've got to be right on target, or else everybody's going to throw stones at you the whole time. I think in general, Anthony Hopkins did a really fine job with it. There were a couple of times he slipped into his Hannibal Lecter tone of voice and mannerisms That was a little distracting. That was a few of the times it brought me out of the film to remind me that this is Anthony Hopkins with a fat suit on and with the jowls.
That's interesting.
It did bring me out a little bit. But overall, for the most part, I was able to completely lose myself in his performance. I thought he did a great job. Helen Mirren, always solid. I didn't think her role and her performance was anything outstanding.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it was Helen Mirren. It was a Helen Mirren performance. I think she's kind of created a standard for herself where as long as she shows up on camera and she recites the lines and she puts the same energy she does in other roles, it's a good performance.
Wow.
Yeah, we could talk. There's one scene in particular that did jump out. I thought was really solid with her.
And I think that's the one that I'm looking at,
Yeah.
thinking, how can you...
No, that one scene was perfect. It was a perfect scene that we'll get to in a moment. But overall, the rest of the performance, it was a good, solid Helen Mirren performance. Not anything I'm going to write home about. The rest of the performances, we had Scarlett Johansson playing Janet Leigh. And visually, I thought she was spot on. I mean, she had the mannerisms down. She had the tone of voice down pat. Most of the other roles they were pretty small. Even Johansson's role was a fairly minor role. We really spent all of our time with Alfred and Alma. So that was Helen Mirren, Anthony Hopkins. I'd say between the two of them, they're on screen 90% of the time. So,
Right.
You really got to buy into those two performances in general. Second-time director, this guy, Sasha Gervasi, I think, directed the documentary about Anvil, the old 80s hair metal band, which I thought was a pretty good documentary.
I haven't seen that. I'd be interested to see.
Well, I thought it was a little of an overrated documentary. A lot of people had praised it in other avenues. I watched it and thought, it's a decent documentary, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't great.
Gotcha.
So it was really interesting to see him go from a behind the scenes of an 80 metal band where they are now and kind of that behind the scenes documentary, real life stuff,
Sure.
to this behind the scenes of a making of a film, but with dramatic interpretation. So overall, I enjoyed it, but I realize I'm also a very biased observer of this film. So Chris, I'm actually probably more interested in hearing what you have to say because I know you're not as much the Hitchcock a fan that I am, and maybe not as big a fan of the film Psycho. So not going in with quite those high expectations. What did you think of the film?
I was surprised by the film. And basically, I think the reason I was surprised was I was expecting, from the previews and from what I've been told, I was expecting more of a historical film.
Okay.
And that's not what this film was at all.
No.
But the way it was done and the way it was set up, you knew from the opening moments or shortly thereafter the opening moments that this was going to be a little different.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin anything because I actually think it was really cool how the movie was framed. Mm-hmm. And I want to leave that kind of vague for people who might see it and because I want them to be able to enjoy it like I did because I was kind of thrown off by how it was happening. But let's just say there's an opening moment and a closing moment that are staged very true to how I think, very true to a Hitchcock manner.
Yes.
And that immediately took me out. I was like, whoa, what is going on here? But I respected that. And it also set a tone for the rest of the film that didn't always stay true, but somehow that juggling nature of, I think there were aspects of humor in there. I think there were aspects of just the drama of making a film. But then there was also, and this was the unexpected part that is actually my favorite part of the movie, was the relationship drama that I was not really thinking would be like a major part of the movie, but it really was. That's what this movie was to me, was a relationship drama. Normally movies like that, I don't get into.
Yeah.
They're not interesting to me, and there are just so many of them that they seem formulaic. And when I mention formulaic, Alma Redville, actually, Hitchcock's wife, she at one point says, when he's trying to make Psycho, she's like, oh, that's just, horror claptrap. And he's like, yeah, but what if a really good director were to make a horror movie? Well, to me, this movie is what if an okay director, because there are some problems with the movie, but what if a good screenplay is out there and some really good actors make a relationship drama? And that's what I think this was, because it is not, it could be claptrap like Hope Springs that came out with Meryl Streep and Tommy Lee Jones, older couple struggling to relate to one another. They go to a therapist. I have not seen the movie.
I was going to say, you just called it claptrap without actually seeing it.
That's true. That's true. I have not seen it, but I have read reviews of it and I have heard people talking about it. And to be fair, yes, I guess I should see it, but I think you know where I'm going with
Yeah, I
this.
do. Yeah.
And so this movie is the film snobs version of Hope Springs, and it worked for me on many levels. And
Wow.
I did not expect that.
That's great. Well, you brought up something that I was going to bring up as well, as far as what I thought was probably the biggest strength of the film for me, is that, yes, the framing, the beginning and end framing, and then there's several moments throughout the film that apply a very unique technique to the biopic
Yes.
that I thought were very well done. And honestly, Chris, answer me this. If that element wasn't there, in other words, the film opens and it's a true biopic from frame one. Very traditional biopic. It did not have that framing. It did not have those dream sequences throughout the film. Would this film have rated as high with you?
It's hard to say because I responded to that element, but equally I really responded to that whole
The relationship
drama thing
Yeah.
that I wasn't expecting to really be that. So I probably wouldn't respond to it as much because I thought that was a really creative use of flashbacks, I guess, in a way you could say they were.
I'm with you. When the film opened, in the first opening scene, your first thoughts are, okay,
happening?
I'm not expecting this at all. And it was really good. And then the way it ended was really good, minus the obligatory text on the screen to tell you what's happened afterwards. That, there again, I don't ever see the point for that in these films.
I know. And a lot of times everybody knows who Alfred Hitchcock is.
Nobody
You
needs
don't
to know
need
that
any closing
how many
thing.
more films he made after Psycho and all that.
Okay. But even though, this is Chris, who's usually the art house snob and doesn't like things that are formulaic, I will have to say, because of the relationship drama, I appreciated that they kind of gave a closing note on his career.
Yeah.
And when he got an Oscar, basically, and it mentioned what he said in his speech, and that kind of closed the loop on the relationship with his wife. It was, to me, I get what you're saying about the text, and it's kind of like a groaner type thing, but because of the relationship drama that had played out, I appreciated that.
The film that I think this had a lot more in common with as far as a biopic goes, a biopic that I did not enjoy as much, Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash one.
Okay.
Because there again, that's a biopic that, yes, you're hearing about Johnny Cash's life, but really the movie was about his relationship with June Carter Cash.
Got you.
To me, you're exactly right. The relationship of this couple, yes, in any other traditional biopic, it would have been a subplot that got dangled along occasionally throughout the film. But more and more of it would be, is Alfred Hitchcock going to be successful or is he not going to be successful with this attempt of making a film?
Right.
In this movie, yes, that was the subplot. The main plot was, do Alfred and his wife have a good, healthy relationship, and is it going to continue to be healthy in the future?
Right.
That's the main question you wanted to know by the end of this film, not was Psycho going to be successful, because that to me was really more of a subplot, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Like you said, the relationship really did get elevated in this film a lot more than I think your traditional biopics are. So with that,
I would agree. And I think one of the problems probably in marketing this movie was they didn't really know which way to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons not a lot of people have seen Hitchcock. It's a smaller movie, it was released to art houses. And I think they didn't know whether to make it. They didn't make it as a historical piece.
Yeah.
It has history in there, but it's more of a relationship drama, but then it has elements of humor, and they didn't know how to market it. And I think that probably it suffered because, as you've mentioned, it has Helen Mirren, it has Anthony Hopkins, it has Michael Stuhlbarg. It just has a huge cast, Toni Collette and Scarlett Johansson. It has all these names, all of which I thought did awesome jobs.
Okay.
So it's like, well, why isn't this wider seen?
well, we talked about it a little bit at the screening last night with our Film Society membership, and I think there is a general understanding that a film about the making of a 60-year-old film is a tough sell in the marketplace. Unfortunately, we've got a younger generation that's probably not anywhere as connected with Alfred Hitchcock as we were in generations before us.
True.
Psycho, not revered as the horror classic by younger generations, maybe as it has been for older. So making a film about the making of an old film is a tough sell. It's just a very tough sell in today's marketplace, no matter how many stars you throw at it, I'm afraid.
True.
It's a shame. It really is a shame because this is a good movie. And this is a much more entertaining biography picture than I think most biography pictures get to attain.
And it was, and they tried things in an interesting fashion that you and I have talked, the bookend thing that they tried to do and the flashbacks. It was much more interesting than your typical bio.
All I'll say with that, not there again, trying to keep away from spoilers, but his inspiration for wanting to make Psycho his next film, he constantly gets visits from that inspiration throughout the film at different key points in the story.
Yeah.
And through dream sequences or other kind of strange little mental imagery. It was well done. I agree. That was the part that really elevated this to a very interesting film to watch, not just, oh, let's rehash all the details we know about the making of this film.
Right. And there was another satisfying, not to slight the history part of it, because that is, obviously it's there. And for me, it was really fascinating to see what you would term as Alfred Hitchcock's struggle with trying to make a movie. He is successful, but he has somebody tell him no.
Yeah.
And he's been an artist, and he's like, okay, I don't care. I'm going to make this movie. And he, it doesn't spoil anything. He backed Psycho, and then his struggle with worrying whether or not it was going to be a success. And it's just, even though watching the movie, you know how Psycho is going to turn out.
Sure.
But that doesn't eliminate the drama that you get to see played out on screen. It doesn't eliminate my satisfaction in watching how it played out. So.
If I could throw out one more positive and one more negative on the film from my perspective. The positive is this was a very brisk film. It wasn't a 2.5 hour long biopic movie. The scenes moved quickly.
Yeah.
It didn't dwell too long. I never thought it really lost a lot of momentum.
Agreed.
The humor helped really kind of keep the film going too. There were a lot of very good humorous moments, a lot of great lines. It moved quickly from scene to scene. The parts where they could have really drawn out and stretched out, they didn't. They said, all right, we got it. Move on to the next scene. Almost much like Hitch's directing style. That was much the way he directed as well. It's like, got it. Let's move on. Next scene. I kind of felt like they adapted a little bit of that in there as well. And even the music they piped in was very similar to the music Hitchcock would have used in his own scoring. Danny Elfman doing the score, which I thought worked really well with this too.
I love Danny Elfman.
Yeah,
so,
it was a good fit there. The one thing, very, very minor point, this is probably coming more from me than anybody else. As I mentioned at the Society discussion last night, I know all this information about the making of Psycho. I've read up so much about all the little stories, interesting trivia about it. At times, I felt like this movie was almost trying to prove how much they knew about this behind the scenes making by dropping in little tidbits of trivia that really had no impact on the rest of the film. It was almost just a matter of saying, ooh, look, we're going to throw in this little trivia bit. And, oh, look, we're going to throw in this piece. For example, it's commonly known that Psycho was one of the first American films to ever show a toilet.
Gotcha.
Let alone to ever show a toilet flushing. Alfred Hitchcock and the screenwriter were so adamant about making sure this toilet and the toilet flushing was shown in the film. They wrote it into the screenplay to make sure it was such an integral plot point that it had to be in there. Now, this scene, this discussion about this bathroom toilet in the film really has nothing to do with the relationship of Alfred and Alma. It had nothing to do with the much bigger picture. I think it was just more of a matter of let's drop in a little piece of trivia and let people know, ooh, look how much we know about the making of this film. That bugged me a little bit because it happened more than a few times. It was almost scattered throughout these little nuggets of trivia, just to almost say, look how much we know about the background of this film. Where I just didn't think it really played into the overall story that we were trying to follow.
I mean, hello, Coca-Cola. I'm Pepsi. I couldn't disagree with you more.
Actually, I find Coca-Cola and Pepsi very similar. But anyway, go ahead. I know where you're going with this.
I was trying to do it not a political thing.
I understand. Yes, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with you more. That scene to me showed Alfred Hitchcock's playfulness and something that his struggle to make a piece of art. He's going up against a ratings board. This movie had lots of trouble with that for many reasons.
Right.
And he was like, nope, I want that in there. Like, oh, and like that showed with me a little of that. And he ended up, there again, I don't want to spoil anything, but there was kind of a tug of war going back and forth, like cut this out, put this in, cut this out, put this in. And that was when he had an immediate defense for. I don't know. I felt like it was justified and it made it work.
The fight with the censors, I totally appreciated because there again, the amount of violence and potential nudity in the film. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely critical to the trials and tribulations of making the film. It was more those little trivia nuggets, the things when you pull up IMDb and you look at the trivia list. I almost felt like they were trying to check off as many of those trivia items to drop in the film as possible. That was just, it bugged me a little bit. Not enough to say it hampered my enjoyment of the film. Just something to say that, I think sometimes these making of films maybe go a little too far trying to be clever with all the trivia they can cram into a film when it's not always necessary. That's just me on that. So,
well, I think I actually, which maybe surprises me, I think I like this film more than you. The only two minuses I would say is, and it's nothing a fault of the film. I think it's merely budget, probably. Mm-hmm. There's been another time our listeners will have to email in and tell me what it was when I talked about somebody's makeup and it being distracting for me. I can't remember when I've mentioned that in recent history, but sometime I mentioned that. I actually thought Alfred Hitchcock, Anthony Hopkins' makeup was distracting. And
in a
not
couple
that it was-
scenes.
not that it was poorly done. I mean, he looked like Alfred Hitchcock. But sometimes because of camera angles and stuff, like I said, this is very nitpicky. But I thought it actually made the makeup look bad.
There were
And
a
it was
couple
kind of
scenes.
distracting
There were a
for
couple of
me.
scenes where it was bad.
And so it made me kind of wish, I wish he had just been wearing a fat suit and they would have done not a whole lot with his face. It was the face that I was having.
With Alfred Hitchcock, you got to do the face.
It was the face that I
Yeah.
was having problems with.
Right.
The rest of his body was fine, but something about like his jowls basically were
Yeah.
looking weird in certain angles. And that's the other minor nitpick, which is probably a budgetary thing. I didn't like the fact that there were so many shots. There was a 2-shot, but you were looking at the back of somebody's head, and like Helen Mirren would be delivering dialogue to the camera, and then they would show you Anthony Hopkins delivering dialogue, and you just see the back of
reverse
Helen.
shot, yeah.
You see the reverses. Those reverses, there were so many of them, and I think it was budgetary because they didn't want to have to. They basically did a wide shot with both actors actually there, and then they would have body double stand in for Anthony
Yeah,
Hopkins.
probably so.
So it doesn't use up his time, and then they did that so much that it really distracted me because you could tell like it didn't actually look like Anthony Hopkins, the
Well,
back of his head. And like
I
that
saw a little
really-
bit of that, and actually sometimes the shots didn't even match up. Like the hand would be in one position, or the person that you're looking over the shoulder, and then you cut to the reverse shot, and they're not in that position. I'm normally pretty good at overlooking that. This actually jumped out at me in
I
this
feel
film
like there
a
was
little
a
bit.
lot of it.
I agree. Yeah, and it could be there again. First dramatic film directing by
Could
this.
be.
Probably a tighter budget. Probably not getting as much support. Obviously from marketing, everything. It hasn't gotten anywhere near the support to market this film.
Right.
That's very possible. It's budget and his first time director in a dramatic film like this. So
Sure.
overall, no, I enjoyed it. I really did. It's just there again. I come into it with a very defined set of expectations.
Got you.
For the most part, it was a very entertaining, good film. I enjoyed it. Couple minor misgivings for me, a couple things with it, but overall, I enjoyed it. I really did like it. I'm really hard on biopics. So for this one to come out unscathed by me and say that I actually enjoyed it as a biography picture is saying something for sure.
Okay.
Great. So Hitchcock, I wish I could say go out and see it in your theater like right now, but I'm afraid it's probably not going to be there.
It only got nominated for makeup.
Yeah,
for the
just
Oscars,
makeup. So hunt it down if you can. It's worth seeing, but if not, wait a few months. It'll be out on DVD. Definitely worth.
It's worth checking out.
Definitely worth checking out on DVD. Absolutely. All right. Let's move on to our second review then.
Okay.
You ready for that, Chris?
Sounds good.
Second review, Django Unchained.
Do you know what a bounty hunter is?
You kill people. And they give you a reward?
Better they are, bigger the reward.
I'm looking for the Riddle brothers. However, I don't know what they look like, but you do. They called my wife. They sold her. But I don't know who to.
Calvin Candy. That's the repellent gentleman who owns her.
In my world, you gotta get dirty. So that's what I'm doing. I'm getting dirty.
What's your name?
Django. D-J-A-N-G-O. The D is silent.
So, Chris, we have a new Quentin Tarantino film.
Yay.
I know. Now, we just need to go ahead and go on record. You and I are big fans.
Yes.
I can still recall going in 1994 to go see Pulp Fiction at the Carolina Theater. I believe it was 94.
Okay.
Downtown Hickory. Back then, I'll give credit, the Carolina Theater has improved greatly over the last 10 years. But back in 94, the film going experience was not the most stellar. Projection, sound, everything else.
Sure.
In a way, it actually kind of helped my enjoyment of Pulp Fiction because it gave it a true pulp feel to watching.
I can see
that
that.
was really my first theatrical experience with Tarantino because I never saw Reservoir Dogs in the theater. That didn't even come anywhere around here
Gotcha.
in a theatrical run. So getting to see Pulp Fiction 94 on the Carolina Theater screen in a very
awesome.
pulp setting was great.
Yep.
And I was with a whole row of friends. We had a blast.
I bet.
Ever since then, I've been a big Tarantino fan. Now, I will say, my enjoyment of Tarantino fans has actually exponentially grown over the years
Okay.
to where even though I enjoyed Pulp Fiction, I was a little let down by Jackie Brown.
We'll come back to that.
Okay. I really liked Kill Bill parts 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. Really liked Inglourious Bastards. It's actually my favorite of his films and probably it was my favorite film the year it came out.
Sure.
So as you can see, my curve has grown with my enjoyment of his films since my first experience. That being said, there's been a lot of parallels drawn between Django Unchained and Inglourious Bastards.
I can understand that.
And I'm very curious on your thoughts on that. But Django Unchained, we do have, let me just kind of back up for those of you who maybe have been living under a rock for a while and don't know anything about this film. Jamie Foxx plays Django, a slave at the beginning of the film who, I'm not spoiling anything, this happens in the first 10 minutes of the film, is freed or bought by a Dr. King Schultz, which is
awesome.
Kind of nice little pun on the name there.
Yes.
Someone who frees him, buys him, frees him, well, not buys him, but acquires him. That's a good way to put it.
Yes.
Acquires him and makes a deal with him that he's going to help him. He needs help being a bounty hunter and an assassin, basically, to collect bounties on people. And in exchange, if he does this, he's going to help him be a free man.
Right.
And then they also get involved in a plot to go try to help free Django's wife, who is a slave at a Candyland, which is the name of Mr. Calvin Candy's plantation, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. We've got Christoph Waltz playing Dr. King Schultz, putting much of the same energy, enthusiasm, and charm that he did for Inglourious Bastards, but he's now playing a good guy this time. Nice little change. We've got Kerry Washington playing Broomhilda, again, another great name, which is Django's wife. We've got Samuel L. Jackson playing Stephen, who I plan to talk about quite a bit during this review. So we've got a really interesting, eclectic cast here. A very controversial subject matter.
Sure.
Typical Tarantino, a bloodbath at certain places, humor, violence, all kind of melded together. Mm-hmm. My question to you, Chris, is a very, very simple one.
Okay.
Did it work?
It worked for me. I liked it.
You liked it?
Yeah, I liked it.
Okay. All right. Like is not a terribly strong word. Are you saying you liked it or loved it?
No, I liked it.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
I liked it. And, it's having come off Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
It would have been hard to measure up to that. Because I, like you, have exponentially grown, a bigger fan of Quentin Tarantino. Like you, I disliked Jackie Brown, or wasn't that far. I went back and saw it recently in preparation for going to see Django.
Okay.
And that was very hard for me to say Django. For some reason, even though they bring it out in the movie that it is Django, the D is silent, I constantly, when talking about it with my wife, I'll go like, Django. She's like, the D is silent. I'm like, yes, I know. I don't know why. I just keep
I think it's just mentally you like to set it up to where your wife has to say, the D is silent.
That could be.
The Django. That's great.
Django. But I went back and watched Jackie Brown, and I really like it now.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, it's like number 2, probably. It's over. It's like, Inglourious Bastards, then Kill Bill. Sorry.
I probably need to go back and give it another crack.
But with this movie, I liked it. Something, the minuses, Jamie Foxx, Django, the character, something about that was kind of thinly drawn for me. Not that, and I think I'd have to blame it on just the screenplay, on the Tarantino writing of that particular part. It just, something about it felt very hollow, and I didn't really buy into some of what the character was saying. I don't know. Just that character, which the movie's named after him, didn't really work for me. But what did work for me, and it's not a surprise, Christoph Waltz playing Dr. King Schultz, he is amazing. I was so happy when he won the Oscar for Inglourious Bastards.
Yep.
He's been nominated for King Schultz. Don't know if he'll get it, but he's amazing. I read a review or an interview with Quentin Tarantino where he was talking about when he was working on Inglourious Bastards and he worked with Christoph Waltz, he just really liked their chemistry.
Yeah.
And he started writing Django Unchained. And he made a point. There was not a German person, a bounty hunter in this movie to begin with. He put him in there.
Well, I think it's a brilliant move.
He wanted to work with Christoph Waltz. And I'm like, Quentin Tarantino has found a muse in Christoph Waltz. And like, dude, your dialogue coming off his tongue is awesome.
Yeah, no, it really is.
Now, that brings me to another minus.
Well, if I can just mention again on Christoph Waltz and his performance there.
Sure.
It's fascinating when you really look at this in conjunction with Inglourious Bastards, the two performances. In a way, the character's very similar, and the dialogue style is very similar. It's almost like if you were to take his character from Inglourious Bastards and say, all right, let's pretend that all of a sudden we could transform this guy into a good guy. That's in a way what we get with this character. I mean, I love the performance. Absolutely love it. It is very much a similar note to the character he played in Inglourious Bastards, I think, from a style standpoint. Not from a purpose or intent, but from a style standpoint, very similar. It's just the way I see it. I loved it, though. I loved his performance. But
I think I would say I love both performances. I would actually say it's a little more nuanced than Inglourious Bastards, and I like that performance. Inglourious Bastards, what was so amazing why I got the Oscar, just like Hannibal Lecter portrayed by Anthony Hopkins, it was like pure evil.
Yeah.
It was watching this person like, wow, that is so crazy. And in this movie, he's not playing pure evil. Obviously, he's a good guy, but he's struggling with things. He seems conflicted about some things, and he's more nuanced to me.
I thought his role in Inglourious Bastards was actually pretty nuanced as well, because even though he was pure evil,
oh man,
it was a constant. His head is constantly recalculating things. In the end, his only thing he wanted out of life was his own satisfaction.
Got you.
So even though he may come across as a very strong advocate of the Nazi army, in the end, he wasn't really. He'll do whatever, So I thought that was a fascinating role to be playing. He's typically the pure evil guy is unwavering. This is his goal. This is what he wants. And with Landa, it was more of a, okay, this is what I want, but yet let me recalculate because things have changed. Now I want this instead. And now I'm going to go this direction. So anyway, I thought both were wonderful roles. Christoph Waltz is a joy to watch in any of these Tarantino films right now.
Yes.
Completely agree with you on that.
Yes.
All right. So what didn't work for you in the film other than you said Jamie Foxx is a little thinly fleshed out character,
Thinly
you thought?
fleshed out. Yeah, that's how I felt. I also did not really care for Sam Jackson.
Really?
No.
Oh, we're going to have some words.
And I don't know whether it was just the fact that Tarantino wrote the dialogue for him. And I think Jackson has been amused for Tarantino in the past. And I'm like, dude, leave, he's done your work. Leave him behind. He was
so
great in Jackie Brown. But something about this, and actually also the makeup on Sam Jackson, maybe if it wasn't, something about how he looked in this film was off to me too. He just looked weird.
He was. Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. So, what else? What'd you like? What you didn't like?
Okay. So, well, let's see. I mean, random other things that I didn't like, which just keeps it from being Inglourious Bastards level, I guess. The Jonah Hill cameo. What's up with that? I mean, put yourself in.
Chris,
have a cameo in a movie, but you don't need to have a close up and a cameo. Like it was just. It was just.
I'm just letting you get
a cameo.
just letting you get all this out of your system before I just tear it apart.
It was ridiculous.
So go ahead.
It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. Right. No reason for it to be there. He didn't even have the main dialogue in that scene. If he had, or been one of the two people doing the main dialogue, that would have made sense. But no, he just. And there were close-ups where he wasn't even speaking on him just because he was Jonah Hill. Ridiculous.
Okay.
So yeah, didn't care for that.
All right.
What something else that would probably benefit from a second viewing of the film, but just kind of confused me. Maybe you'll have an answer. In a group of henchmen, workers on the plantation at Candyland, there is a female.
Yes.
Okay. A female cowgirl who has a bandana over her face. I didn't really understand what that was all about, and I thought there was some misdirection because at various points, Django sees visions of his wife.
Yes.
And I thought maybe at the end of the film, I was like, oh, well, maybe that character really never was there. And that was her just for some reason also showing up with these outlaws. But then I think she was there because there's a shootout scene. So I didn't really understand what was that. And I thought maybe it was a really lazy attempt at some misdirection, actually. So I don't know. Didn't like that. But outside of that, I loved the film. No, I didn't love the film. I liked the film a lot.
Okay, so I'm making notes of everything you just commented on. Okay, so let's go ahead and knock these things out really quickly. How about we do that? Okay, first off, the character of Django, he was thinly drawn. That wasn't the point. He was a catalyst for these things to happen, but the main focus was not Django in this movie. It's all the characters around him helping him succeed this goal. So I didn't care how deep a character he was. His motivations were pretty darn rock simple.
I just wanted to be interesting.
Yeah, but I thought he was interesting. It's like, here's a guy who, he was a slave. He gets freed. It's shown that he actually has a really good penchant for marksmanship, and he's a good shoots a gun pretty well. But there again, he's not the one we're really caring about in all this. I mean, it's everything that's affecting this mission, this journey.
So if we don't care about him,
we do care about him, but we don't need it to be any deeper than it is. I didn't need his role to be any more fleshed out than it was. I knew everything I needed to know about this guy in the first 15 minutes of this film. Secondly, Sam Jackson, you're completely wrong. That role, that performance, brilliant, scary as hell.
Brilliant?
Yes.
Wow.
Now, I know he's playing Sam Jackson. Okay, I know that.
God. He's
Sam
playing
Jackson.
Unbreakable. He's playing the glass character.
Oh, no, completely.
That's what his
different.
makeup looked like, actually.
Well, maybe the makeup did. Sam Jackson, yes, he was playing Sam Jackson on steroids. It's let's throw out as many the cursing, the
Even
vile
had a cane
language,
like the guy in Unbreakable.
But I tell you, this role was creepy. Okay, because it's just when you sit back and think about it. This was the guy he plays, Stephen, who is the head slave at Candyland.
Yes.
Now, if you understand kind of what the culture was like at that time, the idea of the head slave who got preferential treatment and actually would be looking down on the other slaves was really like hated at that time by, of course, those that were slaves and African American community and all.
Sure.
It was a real bad situation, but he played this thing to the tilt where Leonardo DiCaprio is the one we're supposed to be scared of. I was more scared of Steven by the end of the film because I'm sorry, this guy was just creepy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's get to DiCaprio, actually, because we've...
No, I'm not done refuting your point
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
So you're wrong about Stephen, the character of Stephen by Sam Jackson. Let me check that off the list.
Okay.
Jonah Hill, you're wrong on that too. That was funny.
What?
That was funny. I'm sorry. That was funny. It was funny.
The scene was funny.
The KKK scene was hilarious.
Was not
and I
funny.
think just him dropping in a cameo is like, oh, how funny is that? Why
How
not?
dumb is that?
Why not have fun with it? Oh, it's fun. All right, check that off. And then the bandana character. Okay, this is a typical Tarantino thing. Yes, he wrote in a character that probably in the first draft of the script had a much more of a subplot character to him. This is pretty typical with him. He has a much broader, longer storyline for his whole film.
Do you understand what I mean?
Oh, no, yeah, I understand.
Misdirection?
It was a little odd. A couple times
Yeah.
they showed her. They showed a real close-up of her face.
Like you were
with the
supposed to
bandana.
get something
Yeah.
about her. I'm like,
I get the impression that in a
Director's
earlier draft, she probably had some sort of purpose. And maybe I think he's getting into comic books and novels as a spin-off of this character's world. I'm sure she's going to play some sort of role. So it's a little odd, but knowing Tarantino like we do,
there's a reason.
there's a reason for her character to be the way she was. And I'm willing to give him that. So.
I'll get that was a minor complaint.
Yeah, I will say right off the bat, I did not enjoy this as much as Inglourious Bastards. At times, it came really close, but it still was. If I had to put the trophies, the medals at the medal ceremony on the Tarantino films, Inglourious Bastards is still standing up there with the gold.
Okay,
this one is batting around the silver and bronze category for me. I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Okay,
I really do like Kill Bill. Kill Bill Volume 1 was still probably, that was my favorite Tarantino film until Inglourious Bastards came out. So right now, Django is batting somewhere in the Kill Bill category for me, as far as quality-wise. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yes, was it very similar to Inglourious Bastards? Absolutely. It was almost a companion piece, almost like let's take the movie and apply it in an alternate universe, and that was this film.
Sure.
But I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very entertaining. I actually think from a style standpoint, it was the least Tarantino film Tarantino's ever made. And I say that not because of the violence and the gore and the profanity, because that was definitely Tarantino. Visually, though, there was a lot less going on outside of a traditional filmmaking experience with Django Unchained.
I would agree visually, but visually, that's the only thing that I didn't feel was like Tarantino. The dialogue was Tarantino. The music was totally
dialogue, music, and the violence and
Gotcha.
and all that, yes, was very much Tarantino. But think about Inglourious Bastards, how there were some really interesting visual flourishes he put in there.
True.
The scene where Melanie Laurent was applying makeup and getting ready for the theatrical film screening, that was a very kind of odd visual thing. There was a couple cutaways where some of the Nazis were talking, and all of a sudden you cut away for them having sexual encounter with a woman just for like a brief 10 seconds and then come back. There was nothing really like that in Django. Nothing that was really just like odd. You know, you look at it and it was a very strange visual experience. So from that standpoint, I do think it was his most, I dare say, mainstream film, which is odd to say, but it really was his most accessible film for somebody coming into it blind. So I really enjoyed it. I did think there was a couple things that didn't work for me as well. I really did not like Quentin Tarantino's role at the end of the film. It was bad.
Well, okay.
He plays
here's how I can overlook
10-minute scene at the end. He plays Australian or something, or Irish, something.
I think
Horrible accent.
Here's how I can
horrible
overlook
role,
that.
Yeah.
When I can't overlook Jonah Hill.
Okay.
Quentin Tarantino has been in others of his movies. He doesn't.
He
do
always
it.
sucks.
He does. But, he's a director.
Yeah, I
and
know.
if
He can
wants
do what
to
he wants to
so
do.
it's like, M. Night Shyamalan was kind of riffing on Alfred Hitchcock to kind of throw back. Alfred Hitchcock put himself in his movies. M. Night Shyamalan would every once in a while.
Wow.
But, Alfred Hitchcock was smart enough not to speak.
Alfred Hitchcock was smart enough to make it like a brief scene.
True.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, M. Night Shyamalan, because he was in Lady in the Water, horrible. And Tarantino's bad in this, but it's kind of like I can dismiss that because I'm kind of like,
I'm glad it wasn't a longer scene. And the fact the way that his role ended was actually kind of hysterical.
Exactly.
So,
they didn't do a bunch of freaking close-ups on him like they did with Jonah Hill.
True.
So I can forgive that. I mean, that is kind of a groan moment, though. I'll give you that.
It was a little
It's
tough.
kind of a groan.
I actually thought this was his most emotional film, too. I actually found myself honestly emotionally invested with Django and his wife, especially some of the scenes with his wife, some of the treatment she was going through while at Candyland. Yeah. Honestly, for a Tarantino film, were pretty emotionally gripping.
Well, and I think
I'm thinking mainly about the hot box,
Right.
the scene with that. That was actually downright traumatic in a way. So.
Yeah, and I think, Kill Bill Volume 2, where they do a little bit of father, mother,
That's true.
and
that
daughter
was
thing.
That was
kind of interesting
pretty
for
close
him.
too.
That was kind of a divergent thing. But yeah, you're right. That was interesting. Some emotional territory that he usually doesn't get into.
True.
A high point for me that came, and it was one of the few things that I felt like the Django character was actually had a chance to kind of work through some stuff, was when he's confronted by King Schultz when they're headed to Candyland, and he's kind of being a little bit of a badass, I guess. And King Schultz is like, hey, you're drawing too much attention to himself. And he then calls on King Schultz. He's like, wait a second. You remember when you told me about how to become a bounty hunter and all this kind of stuff? He's like, well, now I'm getting my hands dirty. And that to me was an acknowledgement of like, yeah, some messed up stuff has to happen, and here it's happening. And I thought in a way, too, that this movie's been maligned for violence, which a lot of his movies always are, but coming after recent current events and shootings and
it
things.
was tough timing on that.
It was bad timing.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like Quentin Tarantino, he has violence in his movies, but I think he owns up to it. He doesn't make it glorious. And I think the fact that Django character kind of says like, yes, this is dirty. We are killing people. This is happening. And I feel like that's a fair way to kind of lay it out there. And I don't feel like he's gratuitous because there's a scene with a dog fight or a dog attack, and he cuts away from it and doesn't let us see it, but he has some dialogue between Candy and Django going back and forth. Later in the movie, they do show a little bit of it, but it's still very brief.
Well, I was actually going to say, I think that's another reason why I think this was maybe his most mainstream film yet, because there were two scenes where he could have gone all out.
Oh, yeah.
The dog attack, and then there was a sign of the Mandingo fight at the Candyland.
Which was pretty
brutal, but
and
could have been so much worse.
Thank you for mentioning the Mandingo, because that's something else that a lot of people were also, there's some people upset. Quentin Tarantino throws the N-word around like crazy.
But I think that was also tying into the culture at the time.
Yes, yes. And I think that's also his style of writing and everything. But to bring up the Mandingo fighting and to have that in there was a very interesting commentary, because it's like, just that whole concept of having people fight and fight to the death. And maybe he didn't intend this, but I like to think he did, because it was some symbolism that I'm not really used to seeing in Quentin Tarantino. The Mandingos, the African-American slaves, are fighting, and the Mandingo fighting. And at one point, a turn in the fight happens, and a dish of candy is knocked over and goes spreading everywhere. And it's kind of like, okay, people, this isn't going to be something pretty and everything. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be real. And you're going to have stuff, upset the candy dish, which happened.
Yeah.
And that happened. And I was just like, wow, okay. And it made it real, and you wanted to kind of turn away. And I think he puts it in your face, because it's not just some cool gunfight, which we do have a very violent gunfight towards the end of the movie. But he's making you realize what violence is. And I think it's passing stuff off as, I think you're doing the movie a disservice if you just pass it off as being nothing but violent.
I completely agree. I've never thought that there's argument really. There's violence for violence sake. And yes, Tarantino is a fan of violence. He's a fan of depicting violence, but there's always something else going on.
Right.
It's not just, let's see how many cool action scenes with a lot of heavy violence we can put in a row. There's something else to it. And yes, the gunshot, the gunfight towards the end is a very long, drawn out, a lot of violence,
Yes.
a lot of blood.
Yes.
But at the same time, I felt like at that point I was invested enough to know why it had to end like it did.
Sure.
There was really no other way for it to end by that point. So I really liked the film. There again, coming off Inglourious Bastards, I can't be honest and say that it wasn't a little bit of a step down for me. But you know what? I mean, if it's second runner-up to Inglourious Bastards on the movie chain for me, I'm okay with that. It's still a great film, great experience. I will say the one thing, too, for me about these last two films in particular that have really been interesting is they're both spoken and focused on a demographic group that I'm not a part of. You've got the idea of the Jewish revenge with Inglourious Bastards.
Sure.
I'm not Jewish. You've got Django with the idea of revenge and retribution and kind of going against the people that were doing such horrible, despicable acts to African Americans and the slaves. I wasn't one of those either. So I just thought it was really interesting how he is able to make me in both of those films completely understand the need for that idea of revenge and retribution for these horrible, despicable things that are happening to these people. Where, yes, I can read a book about slavery, I can see other films and understand the plight and feel the anguish. He's just got a habit of knowing how he can really put me in the shoes of these characters. And there again, it kind of goes back to the violence. I mean, remember the violence was happening first by these people oppressing the people. I mean, it was the white plantation slave owners who were having the Mendigo fights, who were sicking the dogs on the slaves. So the violence was not unjustified. The violence was not just for the sake of violence. There was a true pent-up anger and frustration about where they were. Same thing happened in Inglourious Bastards. That's why even that violent ending in the movie theater in that one was completely earned. It was completely, you were cheering for it.
Right.
And I think to make you feel that way about a race and a type of person that you don't belong to was really, really impressive.
There's something specific to the more I'm thinking about it. At the end with the gunfight, when some people are getting shot, there's one particular shot where there's a corpse that the person's already died, and they keep showing bullets hitting it.
Yeah.
And they did it more than once.
Oh, yeah.
And they kept kind of repeating it. And at first, I got irritated. I was like, okay, this is gratuitous. This is ridiculous. But now that I'm reflecting on it, it's kind of, again, in a way, pushing your face in it. It's like, here's the gunfight. It's happening. But we're not just going to show you wide shots of people getting shot and falling down. No, we're going to put your face in it, and we're going to not rub your nose in it, but in a way, I guess so, and make you realize that this is violence. So I don't know. I kind of respect that more. It irritated me at the time, but I guess I can respect it a little more now.
Well, I love what he's just done these last two films with this idea of this revisionist history where let's take a really horrible, horrible aspect of our history in this world and let's turn it on its head a little bit and let's see kind of a what if, which I like thinking of it as a what if. What if the people who really, needed that retribution and needed that were able to get it? And I love that concept. And something about, I've actually read that he's planning on a third film in much the same style.
Oh, really?
To me, I'm like, go for it. Knock yourself out. If you want to pick another horrible, horrible period of our history as a world and turn it on its ear and show us a different angle, I'm ready for you to do it.
I'm glad to hear that because I'd heard, internet rumors. Don't believe them, but I'd heard that after finishing this film that he had supposedly said that he was considering doing TV and not doing movies anymore because he didn't want to have to put up with like red tape and all this kind of stuff, and turn around on TV was better. And I was like, that would be such a shame. I mean, granted, he'd make some interesting TV, but because his vision just really seems to be in film. And so I'm glad to hear that he's got
supposedly that's what I've heard. And I'll tell you, this movie's making money for him. I think it's already his biggest grossing film.
Really?
I think it's already
better
passed.
than Inglourious Bastards.
I believe so.
Wow.
Now, I could be wrong on that. I haven't checked the numbers, but I think it's already passed 100 million and gone really, really well.
Wow.
Now, if that's the case, I think he's probably going to have to worry a lot less about red tape going forward. If each of his films keeps building from a box office standpoint and getting more acceptance and more openness. And I do think there again, this is, I think, a little more of a mainstream film for him. A little more. Each film kind of creeps a little more towards a mainstream mentality, but yet still has enough of his Tarantino style to make it fun and interesting to watch.
So maybe we could be another step closer to him doing either James Bond or a superhero movie.
Yep. Which I'd be very open to.
Because he could do Unbridled because he's gotten so much money. He proves that he's got,
I think it's a good thing for all of us in the film community when a director like this gets box office success and it grows and grows, because all that means is he's going to keep making movies.
True.
And he's going to have a lot more freedom on where he goes with them. And that's only a good thing for us.
Agreed.
So I love the film. I thought it was great. Not as good as Inglourious Basterds, but still really, really good. You liked the film, and, sounds like you recommend it. You enjoyed it, but you had more misgivings with it than I did.
I think we're on the same page, but then we're on completely different books as far as Sam Jackson's performance.
The one performance we didn't talk about was Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to get back to that.
Yeah.
I thought he was really good, and I enjoyed seeing him play a bad person, which I have to run back in my head to think, but I don't think I've really ever seen him play a bad person.
I can't think of it.
Oh, I know what I wanted to point out. You mentioned how you thought Steven was really creepy.
Yes.
And I thought, on the other hand of that, I thought DiCaprio was really creepy.
Oh, they both were creepy.
And he always had this simmering, like, I'm going to blow up and go nutso on you. And like when he had a conversation with Steven about some things that were occurring, something Steven had picked up on, and he was kind of like, okay. Mm-hmm. Like, and he was just, the way he handled everything, I was like, wow, he's really boiling under the surface, about to explode. Something else that was really creepy, his sister, I believe, is on the plantation, and that whole relationship, which there again, I think kind of a very stereotypical, it's the South, and like I have my sister there, but I'm doting on her a lot.
Yep.
A lot of odd, interesting subtext going on.
It was a daring role for DiCaprio, and I applaud him for taking it. I applaud him for taking it. You're playing a very despicable
there's no
plantation owner. There's nothing. There was nothing good about him at all.
You don't look good. Your teeth are rotting. You
the
look bad.
only thing that he's got that you could claim is something that at least some rationale for who the character he is you get the sense that he's part of the family business. The family business was given to him, and it was already pretty rotten to begin with. He feels this need to continue this family tradition and business, as despicable as it is.
Wow.
That's the only thing you get out of his character. But, I mean, there's enough there to chew on and to have fun with.
I think so.
He does simmer most of the time. It's a very creepy performance. He does get his explosive scene at the dinner table towards the end of a dinner scene. I don't know. It was really good and very daring. Somebody of his caliber to tell him that you're going to play this type of character that looks this way, acts this way, behaves this way, possibly has some sort of weird relationship with your sister. It takes an actor who's willing to let his defenses down and play that, and confident with what he can do with it. Now it was fun to watch.
One kind of like my parting comment. No spoilers, but there's a character that dies, and I was genuinely taken ababe.
I know who you're talking about, and yes, I agree.
And that's an emotional level that I don't think I've hit. I know for a fact. I've been surprised, maybe in Inglourious Basterds, at some of the things that happen in the conclusion of that film, because you're saying it's kind of history altering. Mm-hmm. But that was more of a surprise. This was like genuine sadness for somebody I don't know,
agree.
For a make believe character.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
And I was just like, no, surely that didn't really just happen. Mm-hmm. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That was tough. It was a tough scene. It was a tough death. I know exactly who you're talking about. Okay, so again, wrapping up. I loved it. Chris liked it.
Yes.
Either way, you need to go see it if you're interested in Tarantino films at all. Go check it out. Let us know what you think. Was it his best ever? Was it far down the list? Where did it fall? We'd love to hear from you. Okay, since I think we just talked about that film for probably a good 30 minutes, we're going to take a really short break, come back, and then we're going to talk about a couple movie news items and close out with our recommendations for the month. Stay tuned. Footcandle Films. We'll be right back.
Main Cellar City Club, Hickory's premier music venue, is the place to go for music events, wedding dinners or receptions, company retreats, reunions, and more. Contact Main Cellar at 828-345-6246 or find us on Facebook and Twitter for all your entertainment updates.
And we're back with Footcandle Films. We had just finished our reviews in the first half of the show of Hitchcock and of Django Unchained. Now it's time to switch gears a little bit. We're out of review mode. We're going to talk about some movie news. This is where I like to comb the internet and find some interesting movie news items or things and see if I can get my co-host here to respond on anything interesting here. A couple things going on in the film community. Here's one, Chris, I'm honestly just very curious about.
Okay.
So I've seen a trailer for a film just in the last week or two. I didn't know anything about this movie beforehand.
Okay.
The film's called Movie 43.
Okay.
Have you heard anything about this?
It's randomly assembled. No, I just know it's supposed to be really raunchy.
It's a supposed to be an extremely raunchy comedy, but it's an ensemble comedy.
Okay.
It is actually directed by multiple teams of people. So it's individual segments stitched together to make this outrageously raunchy film.
Okay.
Now, that on the surface doesn't seem too out of the norm. I mean, putting together raunchy comedy films. But listen to the cast.
Okay.
Richard Gere.
Interesting.
Emma Stone.
Okay.
Liv Schreiber. Hugh Jackman. Elizabeth Banks. Chloe Moretz. Gerard Butler. Naomi Watts.
Okay.
Kate Bosworth. Kate Winslet.
Okay.
Chris Pratt. Halle Berry.
Wow.
Uma Thurman.
Wow.
I mean, Sean William Scott, Justin Long, good gosh, Johnny Knoxville, Terrence Howard. These are all in this movie.
It's interesting.
And as I was watching the trailer, I honestly thought it was a joke. I'm like, really? Halle Berry, Hugh Jackman, all these people, Naomi Watts are in this, Kate Winslet are in this raunchy, over-the-top,
gross out
sex comedy. But no, it's absolutely true. And it's actually being directed by...
Who the director is?
Well, it's a whole bank of people. Elizabeth Banks is actually one of the directors, who's a comedy actress and has done a lot of things. She's on 30 Rock. She did Wet Hot American Summer, all these, and she's one of the directors. We've got Griffin Dunn, who, if you recall he's an actor, but has also done directing in the past.
The name sounds familiar.
Oh gosh, what was the film with Melanie Griffith? Anyway, I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, he's kind of a director and actor from the 80s, did a lot of comedy there. Okay. One of the Farrelly brothers.
Okay. Seems like a Farrelly
brother. Bob Odenkirk.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
Brett Ratner. I mean, it's a very eclectic group.
Yeah. From Bob Odenkirk to Brett Ratner.
Yep.
That right there.
So supposedly this film was made actually like 2 or 3 years ago.
Really?
But I think it was made over a long period of time because not every actor was available for everything.
Sure.
And because it was individual scenes, they could just stitch it together later.
So it's scenes that don't really, there's not a through line.
I don't know.
Basically just like
that's what I'm not sure about.
A montage movie. Okay.
Very curious about this, only because, to see, when you see a trailer up on the screen and you see all these high caliber actors, or Oscar nominated and winning actor and actresses, and then it's like this outrageously vulgar comedy. I don't know. Kate Winslet in a Farrelly Brothers type vulgar comedy, I'm really kind of curious about that.
I'm curious. Is it summer release?
I'm not sure offhand when it is. Oh, it's a January release.
Really?
I think it comes out later this month.
Huh. Okay.
Which is another thing that kind of concerns me about it, is that if it was made a couple years ago, it's finally got around to being released, and it's just now being marketed 2 or 3 weeks before its release.
Right.
It's not always the best sign for a film like that. But
Sure.
I'm interested. Yeah. I don't know. That's the one thing that you want to watch and see what the first reviews look like. If all the reviews start to come back really horrible, this thing was a stinker, and you just probably shouldn't have never been released. So
Sure.
Very interesting. I just thought the concept and the cast involved with it, very, very interesting. The other film I was going to talk about, which I was very curious about as well, I love sports movies. I'm a general sports fan. I'm not a rabid sports fan. I'm not block off my entire weekend to watch sports. I like certain sporting events, and I've got a few favorite teams I follow pretty rigorously.
Sure.
But when it comes to sport movies, something about sports movies they just get me. We've got a movie coming up pretty soon here called 42. And this is the film about Jackie Robinson.
Oh, not about Douglas Adams and the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
No, but I knew that was probably going to be one of your responses. And by the way, did you notice what I did? The last movie I talked about was movie 43. This one is called 42.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know.
That's
pretty good,
cool.
huh?
Yes.
Okay. So the life story of Jackie Robinson and his signing of the Brooklyn Dodgers. It stars Chadwick Boseman, which I've never heard of, kind of a newcomer, which I think is great. If you're going to have somebody play Jackie Robinson, that's the guy to do it. But
not Jamie Foxx? That's kind of surprising.
I know. But Harrison Ford is in the film, and he actually plays Branch Rickley, who is the team executive for the Dodgers. So he has a pretty substantial role in the film.
Interesting.
Now, let me just kind of open that up to an open dialogue.
You really don't like biopics a lot of times.
I don't like biopics. So I'm a little concerned about this because this is going to be a conflicting thing for me.
Right.
I like sports movies, but I don't really care for biopics.
Right.
So I want to see how this goes. But then you throw in Harrison Ford, who I have a very conflicted relationship with.
Yeah, Crystal Skull.
Harrison Ford was one of those guys that I could watch any movie he was in back in the 80s,
right,
up until very early 90s. Then something happened. And I don't know what happened. It might have been after Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, sometime after that point, where all of a sudden he was in some of the worst films with some of the most just stone-like acting I've ever seen, where he just was not fun to watch. He was not fun to have. I want Harrison Ford back. I want Harrison Ford back just like I want
Han Solo back.
I want Harrison Ford back just like I want Eddie Murphy back. Those are two people I feel like have such great potential to be good actors or comedians or whatever they choose to be, that for whatever reason have just chosen horrible films in the last 10 to 15 years. And I keep hoping every time there's a new film coming out, I'm like, please let this be the one where they get back on track. So Harrison Ford, you got any comments on that? Are you, outside of the Han Solo and Indiana Jones, do you think he's got the acting chops? Or you?
Yeah. And I don't know what happened. It was somewhere along the line, like he did more than one of those Jack Ryan movies, right?
He did two of them.
He did Air Force One and he did...
No, Air Force One was not a Jack Ryan film.
Okay.
He did Patriot Games. And then he did The Sum of All Fears.
See, all those blend together for me.
Or no.
All those movies do.
Something. He did two of them.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
Air Force One was another film, but very much in that same
okay.
style.
But
so,
somewhere along the line in those films, that's where he kind of fell off the wagon for me. And
Yeah.
then he went steadily down after that. But I do think he's still got it. I think he probably could still do it because I really liked, obviously the Indiana Jones movies. I liked, well, except for Crystal Skull, which doesn't really exist. And
yeah, that was a bad dream.
And then the Star Wars movies and Mosquito Coast. You ever seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a great film.
Yeah, so I hope he still has it. I'd like to see him come back. And yeah, I'm on the page with you with Eddie Murphy. I don't know what happened to him either because I think he's still funny. I've read interviews with him, but I don't know.
Well, if you look at his filmography,
he can be funny in Shrek when he's a cartoon.
Right.
When he's a donkey.
Well, look at Harrison Ford's filmography over the last several years. Right. Last year, he did Cowboys and Aliens, which I never saw, but I heard was not that great.
Right. I didn't see it either.
The year before that, 2010, it was Morning Glory, which he was kind of a supporting role, and Extraordinary Measures, which I never heard of.
No.
The year before that, Crossing Over. Never heard anything about that. The year before that, 2008, was Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Year before that, Firewall. Year before that, Water to Wine. Year before that, Hollywood Homicide.
Whoa.
It's just, these are just not good or well-known movies.
No.
Now, here's my hope for him right now.
I heard Morning Glory was kind of like a slight return.
It was good.
I haven't seen it.
It was a good movie. I'll say I saw it.
Okay.
It was fun, and Harrison Ford was funny in it.
Okay.
But it was just kind of a supporting role. He didn't have the big role. He got to play a little showy in it.
Gotcha.
Here's my hopes for 2013, though. This biopic 42 of Jackie Robinson, that could be a very fun role for him to play. And then he's also in Ender's Game, which is coming out in 2013.
Really?
He's playing Colonel Hiram Graff. So he's got a big showy role in that film.
My mind's just blown. I need a little bit to recover.
Okay.
Ender's Game is...
you didn't even know it was coming to be as a film.
I love that book.
Okay, Gavin Hood is directing Ender's Game.
Don't know who that is. Probably should, but I don't.
I can't remember what offhand he's made. But they've got a great young actor to play Ender.
Who?
Asia Butterfield. Hold on. Oh, we're going down the IMDb path right now. I'm going to tell you. He was the guy from Hugo. He was the little kid from Hugo.
Oh.
He is going to be Ender.
Okay.
Yep. Abigail Breslin is Valentine Wiggin.
That's perfect.
Harrison Ford. Haley Steinfeld, who, if you recall, she was in the Coen Brothers' last film, True Grit.
Oh yeah. Who's she playing?
She's playing Petra.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's amazing.
Ben Kingsley, Viola Davis.
Oh,
it's going to be good.
Ben Kingsley. Oh, yeah. Okay, the casting sounds amazing. The story is, like I say, it's one of my favorite books of all time. It was spun off into a series. Wow. The only thing I'm concerned about is I don't know the director. But I know that the guy who wrote the book, Orson Scott Card, took forever, and he kept telling them no about a movie because he was like, I don't think you can get child actors that are going to be young enough to carry it off. And supposedly, that's why I thought it was in development hell and it would never be a movie. But that is awesome. I think you've just made my day.
All right. Well,
when's it coming out?
Well, let me ruin your day. The director.
No. Wah, wah.
Did you ever see X-Men Origins Wolverine?
No, but I heard that wasn't bad.
Really? Who did you hear that from? A crazy person?
Maybe. I didn't see it. Well, I heard it was better than the X-Men movie that had come before.
It was slightly better, but that's not saying a whole lot.
Okay.
It was not a good film.
Okay.
But that's the only thing he did Rendition back in 2007, which was Jake Gyllenhaal and who else was in that?
I heard of that movie.
Yeah. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot there. He's done some other small films. So this may be his breakout. This may be his big film. Who knows? I'm not sure.
Okay. Is it a summer release?
Let's see. 2013, they're looking at November. So it's going to be an end of the year, more of a holiday.
They're thinking an Oscar type thing. If it's November.
Possibly.
Wow.
So anyway,
Awesome.
I didn't know you didn't know about that. That automatically became my third item on our news item then. So Ender's Game is going to be a film coming out at the end of 2013. Yay. Could it be a return to form for Harrison Ford? Could that be the role?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
I don't care about the Jackie Robinson movie. I mean, hey, if it's great, great. I want him to return to form in Ender's Game.
Okay, well, there's your chance. Ender's Game has now become the Footcandle Films film to watch for 2013. All right. Well, back to 42. I'm excited about 42. I do like the sports films. I think Jackie Robinson's story is a great story to see in the film. I am curious about the cast with Harrison Ford. We've also got Alan Tudyk, who I mentioned when I did the little spot review of...
he was in Firefly, right?
He was in Firefly. Okay. He was at Death at a Funeral. I thought he was very funny in that. I like him in general. He's a great voice actor. He's a great character actor. So he's in the film as well.
Okay.
Very excited to see what happens with that sports film, 42. I think that's going to wrap us up for news today. So let's go ahead and move on to our last segment of the show, which is our recommendations. These are films that you can find online, hopefully streaming somewhere, because we know movie theaters, films come and go pretty quickly, but there's a lot of films that maybe don't get seen as much as they should, or we come across and really want to play up. So Chris, you mind going first? What's the film you want to share with us here?
I would like for people to check out Bernie, which is Richard Linklater's latest. And it's based on a true story of a guy named Bernie Tidy or some Tide. I can't remember how to say his last name. But anyways, his name was Bernie. And it's based on a true story of a guy who worked in a small town in Texas who was a mortician. Okay. And he was beloved by everybody in the community. And he establishes a relationship with this really cranky older woman, played by Shirley MacLaine in the movie, that everybody hates. Mm-hmm. And the mortician is played by Jack Black. And it's one of the best things I think he's ever done. He has a fine line to walk between being a caricature of a Southern man who likes to sing gospel music and maybe a tad effeminate. It sounds like it would just be this, and you hear Jack Black and you're like, oh, that sounds like a disaster. He's just going to be this, bigger than life, ridiculous person. But he does it so well. There's some tenderness there, and you really feel for Bernie. And Richard Linklater, he has had a very interesting career making movies. He kind of does what he wants. He did Before Sunrise and or Before Sunset. I can never keep how you say those two. But anyways, he made those movies. He made the Dazed and Confused. Yep. Mm-hmm. And which is also one of his big movies.
He's a very hit or miss director, and it's a very wide variety of filmmaking genres too.
So. And I wonder if the reason he made this movie is I believe Richard Linklater's originally from Texas. Okay. And I think, because I know he was big into the Austin scene and South by Southwest and stuff. And I think Matthew McConaughey is also from Texas, and Matthew McConaughey is in this movie as well. And I wonder if there's it was kind of a pet project, or he saw this news item and was like, man, that'd make for an interesting film. And whether he got McConaughey, who was also in Dazed and Confused, kind of a star-making performance, to come back and do this. McConaughey's role in this is awesome. I think he's pretty good in this as well. So it's a film that I recommend people check out. And one real quick, last little thing that's kind of interesting about it. In the movie, there are some townspeople that kind of talk directly to the camera and are used. Some of them, I think, are fake. They're actually actors portraying, townspeople. But then I think some actual townspeople from the small town in Texas are in this movie, and they're not playing a part. They're literally it was like they smashed together a documentary with this fictitious film, or, this film. It's an interesting idea. And I think it works really well. So if you're a fan of Linklater, I suggest check it out. Or, if you're just a fan of good movies, check it out. I can't recommend it strongly enough.
I've actually heard a lot of great feedback on Bernie, and I've actually got that on my internet Netflix queue to check out as well. I have not seen it yet, but yeah, I've heard good things. You didn't see Killer Joe, did you?
No.
That was another film. McConaughey had a good couple years there. Got a lot of acclaim for Magic Mike. Actually, it was considered a little bit. I didn't see that. It was actually considered a slight bit of an Oscar snub for not getting any kind of nomination for his performance in that. Killer Joe, I hear he's really, really good in. And now Bernie, I've also heard, was really a good performance. So I think he's kind of gone back from the romantic comedy direct that he was kind of stuck in for a few years. And
Claptrap.
Claptrap. I think we have a title for our episode here. Seems like he's getting in some more daring roles and daring performances. I'm glad to see that as well. So good. Well, you kind of already spoiled a little bit of my my pick. No, that's okay. I was going to do kind of a weird combo pick in that Netflix is fortunate enough to have Firefly, who you mentioned, as a TV series. Alan Tudyk is in it.
Okay.
Very short-lived film TV series. But the reason I'm bringing it up in a film review show is that there is a film called Serenity that came after the TV show was done. I had seen Serenity several years ago when it came out, and I had not seen Firefly. So I was a little out of sorts with the film. I probably did not enjoy it quite as much as I could have at that point.
Okay.
I since then have gone back and watched most of the episodes of Firefly, getting ready to watch Serenity again. However, even without having watched Firefly, the TV show, I still thoroughly enjoyed Serenity. It's just there were a lot of parts of it that I couldn't quite piece together because I didn't have quite the background there. I think, unfortunately, that probably didn't help at the box office and all, too,
Sure.
depending on seeing a show that was a short-lived TV series with only 13 or 14 episodes to base a film off of was a little bit of a daring move.
Right.
What I'm saying is, I do think if you're in the mood for 14 hours of some really good, solid entertainment, you've got Firefly as a show, then you can migrate over into Serenity, and you've got a great, good experience. Serenity has a bigger budget. It's very obvious than the Firefly show. Firefly was pretty low budget. There are some times where it's kind of groaning special effects or set design pieces and all. But I think if nothing else, you've got Nathan Fillion, who I still think is one of the better science fiction characters we've had in the last 20 years. Very Han Solo-ish with his depiction of the captain of the crew, but enough of an interesting twist on his character, where even though he's got the cockiness of the Han Solo, there's also a lot of other things going on in the back of his head, I think, too. Overall, I think it's a great ensemble cast. I think it's fun. I love the fact that there was actually a sci-fi series on TV that was actually pretty good for a while. Unfortunately, it didn't last very long. But so I'm kind of doing a combo. It's a TV series, but it's a short enough TV series you can knock it out in a week or two watching it on Netflix, and then go right over to Serenity and enjoy that film. I think the two together make a really good experience. I've had fun watching them, rewatching them lately.
And I guess if you're a fan of The Avengers, that's Mr. Joss Whedon. You should check
That's
that
true.
out.
I should mention Joss Whedon, the writer and director of Firefly and Serenity. This was way before The Avengers.
Oh, yeah.
But you get some of his humor and dialogue obviously woven in. He obviously has fun with these ensemble teams where each team member has a very distinct personality and they play off each other. You see a little early signs of what he tried to do in The Avengers here in this work. There again, it's on Netflix. I think it's a great deal to be able to watch all 14 episodes and then watch the movie shortly after and have a great experience with that. A lot of fun. So, good. Okay, so that's our show for today. Wow, we covered a lot and some great long discussions. Hitchcock, Django Unchained, check them both out. We both strongly recommend them. Some of them stronger than others between the two of us. Some movie news. We got the movie 42 and the movie 43, both coming out sometime this year. And talking now about Ender's Game is now our big one that we're going to be watching throughout the rest of 2013. So with that, we're going to close out the show. As always, you can learn more about The Mesh at themesh.tv. That's our podcast network of all of our shows and episodes we put out. Go back and listen to any back episodes of this show or any other shows we have. Please help us out on iTunes and hit that subscribe button whenever you see our show. That means that every time we put out a new episode, you get it automatically downloaded to your iTunes account and without having to be prompted or go search out the episodes when they're available. We want to make sure you get these episodes as quickly as they come out, especially because a lot of the times we're reviewing films that may not be in theaters for a whole lot longer after we've reviewed them. So you need to kind of hear this as soon as it comes out. So go subscribe to the show. Help us out with that. If you got any questions, comments, ideas for us, drop us a line at info@themesh.tv or just go to the Mesh website and fill out the contact us form and get a hold of us that way. And then our film society, Chris and I have a film society here in Western North Carolina where we host film screenings once a month and have some great dialogue afterwards. That's at footcandle.org. You can see what our schedule of screenings coming up is and learn a little bit about our membership situation as well. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. Chris, as always, take care. Thanks. Have a good weekend. Good seeing you. And hopefully we'll see everybody or see each other at the movies soon.
Hi, guys.
Take care.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.